So our next category includes ID and simulation action as the arguments. So it is pretty simple. You just have to write that quote, and then after that, so instead of severity, you will just write ID and action. And then you should have your two arguments. The first argument should be the ID, and the second argument should be the targeted simulation action you want to replace. So in this particular method, it only targets the reporting macros with certain IDs, and only those IDs will get replaced. So other than this, we have similar to above, we also have the hierarchy variant, in which you just have to write hierarchy at the end. So first, let me remove that bug in our checker. So coming back to our test component, let's say if we want to target a specific uh, ID. So let us just use the hierarchical variant, and let's just say that so the UVM info with the monitor ID should work as let's say UVM count. So after we receive a certain number of count, it should terminate. And how do we set that? So as I did in my previous video, I set the max quit count to be 5. So any macro with the simulation action of UVM count, if it occurs more than 5 times, the simulation should terminate. So here we have a single UVM info in our monitor component for every sequence, and they are going to be, and there are 10 sequences in total. So here what I will do, I will target that particular ID. And what is the ID for the reporting macro inside the monitor? I'm using get type name method, which basically returns the name of the class, and name of the class is monitor, so the ID should be monitor. And then the second argument is going to be the simulation action. So we want to replace the simulation action with UVM count, and it will increment. And since we have already set the max quit count to be 5, so it should quit the simulation after we receive the sixth UVM macro with monitor as a ID. So you could also uh, include multiple uh, multiple simulation action. So let's say I also want to display those UVM macros. So display is also there for the reporting macros by default, but I want to include both UVM count and UVM display. So just by using this logical OR, you could also add the UVM display. So I'm saving the code, and let's just go ahead and open the QuestSim and let's compile the code. And let's just take a look whether I have saved everything. Okay, everything seems fine. Okay, we have an error. And the error is simple that I am compiling the test instead of the top. I should compile the top level SE file. Now let's start the simulation. Let's run the simulation. Okay, so what we have here. So as you can see that the simulation did quit because we received more than 5 counts, and all of those counts were associated with the UVM info reporting macros present inside the monitor component. So you could see that we had 5 sequences, and our very last sequence is going to be the sixth monitor. And after its occurrence, the simulation simply terminates. So this basically means that that particular UVM reporting macro, which is present inside the monitor, uh, where it is here, it worked as UVM error because, as I've discussed in my last class, that UVM error has two simulation action associated to it. The first one is UVM display, and the second one is UVM count. And in our test component, we just literally did the same thing. We replaced the simulation action with count and display, which is basically making it work as UVM error. So similarly, we could do the same thing by referencing the specific hierarchy and replacing the simulation action associated to the to the reporting macro with that particular ID. So the last category will be the most specific one, and in this category we have 3 arguments. So the first argument is going to be the severity, and second argument is going to be ID, and the third argument is simulation action. So like the other two categories, it also have 2 types. The first one is the non-hierarchical reference, and the second one is hierarchical reference, which will get applied down the hierarchy. So in our case, we are using UVM test, and it is the upmost hierarchy after UVM root. So it will get applied to every components and objects. So it is pretty simple. You have to write set report. Then as per the order of arguments, you have to write it. So the first argument is severity, the second argument is ID, and the third argument is action or simulation action. So it will have 2 arguments. The first argument is severity, second argument is ID, and the third argument is simulation action. And it also has another variant, which is the hierarchical variant. And you just have to write hierarchy at the end. So using this, it will be more specific than the other two. So let us just comment it first. So let's just target the uh, same ID, just to mention, just to clear that this will take precedence over this one. So the desired, let's see. So yeah, the desired uh, severity is going to be UVM info, and the ID is going to be monitor, and the simulation action will be. So yeah, so since we want to compare both of them, let's say for this, I will use the simulation action. Let's see, we have lots of them. Let us use no action. So it will do nothing. It will just ignore. So let's see which will get the precedence over the other. So it will just do nothing and it will ignore. Let's save the code and let's make it sure that I have written it correctly and I have not made any typos. Yeah, so the targeted severity is UVM info because in the monitor, uh, the particular macro is UVM info, which we are going to, uh, which simulation action we will be replacing. And the ID is monitor, as I have already discussed that I am using get type name method, which returns the name of the class. And the desired simulation action is going to be no action, which will simply ignore it and it will do nothing, which I have mentioned here. So let's save the code and let's try to run it and let's see that whether this one will have higher priority or this one. So if this one gets higher priority, then the simulation should quit after 5 occurrences of the UVM info reporting macro present inside the monitor component. Otherwise, nothing will happen. The simulation will keep going on and the UVM info macro inside the UVM monitor will be ignored and the 10 sequences will continue till the end of simulation or drop objection. Okay, let's start the simulation. Let's run the simulation. Okay, as you can see that unlike the last time, our quit count is not getting incremented. And also, since we have replaced the simulation action with UVM no action, we are not seeing any UVM info from the monitor class because right after the driver class, we are supposed to see uh, the one right here, but we are not seeing it, which basically means that the more the more specific it gets, the higher priority it has. So this one is more specific. It has the severity as an argument. Okay, just a second. Yeah, so it has severity as an argument. It has ID as an argument, which is more specific compared to the ID action ones, and even more specific, and also more specific compared to the simulation action one. So just to test it, that whether does it matter, because this is written right after this. So if even if I copy it and paste it for this, then whether it will matter or not, let's find out. Still, we have the same thing and we are expecting the same output because the specific ones have more priority. So I will compile my top again, starting the simulation engine. And let's run the simulation. Okay, as you can see, even though I changed the order and it appears before this line, it is still getting higher priority to the ID and severity one, ID and reaction one. And same will happen when you will compare it with the severity and simulation action one because this is the most specific one and it will definitely have higher priority. And between the ID and simulation action, I think it will depend on the order. So that's all about the simulation action methods which you can use inside your code. In my next video, I will be discussing the same but in the command line. Thank you so much.